So here we go. We're just starting the inaugural part of it. A very good morning to all of you. Most welcome to this Google Meet on this great day of World Environment Day celebration 2021. My name is Ashish Mishra and I'm representing the Alumni Association as president of the Alumni Association. And it's a great honor for me to hold and organize this in collaboration with the International Center for Community Forestry, IIFM. On this World Environment Day, we have great responsibility to start a new chapter in Alumni Association and collaboration with IIFM through this panel discussion. It is very important for us to understand the need for this panel discussion and the need for launching this event and series of events on this World Environment Day. The Alumni Association as well as the International Center for Community Forestry both have been working in collaboration with IIFM to set some goals with respect to the environmental protection as well as the agenda which IIFM lays in its mandate. So Alumni Association has been working with alumni as well as various other associations to make sure that the efforts which are done towards the world environment protection are taken forward. So in this line, it has come out as a good need of the hour to celebrate and commemorate this World Environment Day 2021. Now, it is very important for us to understand that the importance of this World Environment Day or environment protection has never been so prominent, has never been felt so strongly. In the last 2 years, 1.5 years, a small invisible virus has laid the entire mankind down to their own restricted spaces. This has given us a good trailer of what a spoiled ecosystem could be, what an uncontrolled nature could lead to for the human beings, because we are just a small race which has got nothing much in control. So it is very much important for us to understand the need for the climate change mitigation and various other environmental protection measures. So it is very important for the IIFM as well as the Alumni Association to shake hands and start this whole exercise of doing panel discussions on various topics which are quite relevant in today's world and which need to be taken forward in terms of the actions and the implementation parts on the ground. So my privilege to welcome everyone here, and I would now like to invite Dr. Amitabh Pandey for a couple of words as chairperson of the International Center for Community Forestry, and request him to brief the audience for a small
time. Thank you, Ashish. Welcome to all on this World Environment Day occasion. On behalf of Director IIFM and on the behalf of ICCF, Director Sir has another engagement today on the similar occasion. So he has requested Professor Manmohan Yadav, Dean IIFM. I welcome Professor Manmohan Yadav for this occasion. I welcome all the panelists, Professor Madhu Verma, Chief Economist, World Resource Institute, India, Dr. Dilip Kumar, Mr. Sailesh Nagar from NRMC, Mr. Anish Kumar from Transforming Rural India Foundation, Mr. Samrat Mukherjee, DGM NABARD, and Mr. Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya, ekgaon, and moderator Bharti Joshi. Welcome all on this joint collaborative webinar on Environment Day of 5th June. And this year themes rethinking, reimagining, and so this is a theme which has brought to a position where the world is transforming. And as Ashish already said it, the kind of calamities, 2 super cyclone has hit India recently, and more are being predicted. The pandemic is another kind of thing. On the other side, you have sustainable development goal to achieve. So this contradiction and challenges are very important, and the world has to rethink and redesign its processes and thought processes which can give solutions to it. For that, we have assembled esteemed panelists from a different wide range of streams, and they have an extreme huge experiences of the average 30 to 35 years. So they'll be sharing their thought and also giving us some suggestions how the future solutions of environment can take place, because the climate change complexities, the Uttarakhand crisis, all those things are now seen as where a human have to think again how it goes with the nature, because that's the conflict of managing nature. Human has been trying to control the nature and living with nature, two debates Vijay talks about. So on that, this thought process was designed. Alumni Association and ICCF Center came together to start deliberations on it, and I'm happy that we are seeing these occasions happening. So I welcome all the panelists and our dean on this occasion and look forward to a wonderful interaction. So thank you all. Ashish, please, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those nice words. I would request, as Pratap Singh has told, our director could not join this meeting, though he was intending to, mainly because of some issues and some programs preoccupied with ministry. So, Professor and Dean from IIFM, Dr. Manmohan Yadav is there with us, who is the chairperson for this inaugural session. So I request Dr. Manmohan Yadav to deliver the inaugural address and grace the occasion.
Unmute yourself, Professor. Unmute.
Thank you, Ashish Mishraji and Professor Amitabh Pandey. Am I audible?
Yes, you are now audible. You are now audible.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning to all. Distinguished panelists, faculty colleagues, my former faculty colleagues as well, IIFM alumni and students, and other participants for this panel discussion. I extend a warm welcome to you all for this panel discussion on nature-based solutions, a pathway for ecosystem restoration, being jointly organized by the IIFM Alumni Association and the IIFM International Center for Community Forestry on the occasion of the World Environment Day. I take this opportunity to thank the IIFM Alumni Association and in particular Mr. Ashish Mishra and Ms. Archana Sharma and the IIFM International Center for Community Forestry and its coordinator Professor Amitabh Pandey for taking this initiative of organizing series of panel discussions on variety of issues in sync with global theme of UN to reimagine, recreate and restore our ecosystems, which are very vital for the very survival of the mankind. The panel discussion today brings together sectoral experts and valuable experience of professionals, including some of our own alumni, who are the action doers of the changes happening at the ground level. Therefore, I would like to thank and extend welcome to the panelists, including Dr. Dilip Kumar, Dr. Madhu Verma, Mr. Sailesh Nagar, Mr. Anish Kumar, Mr. Samrat Mukherjee, Mr. Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya, and the moderators for this panel discussion, Ms. Bharti Joshi and Sweta Bhagwat. As you all are aware that our natural systems have been facing serious threats on account of overexploitation and excessive pollutants beyond their carrying and processing capacities. While we all recognize the fact that the economic development and globalization have helped millions of people come out of poverty and improve their standards of living, but still there are more people left out from the gains of economic development. This inequitable development and the mindless industrialization has resulted into unintended consequences in terms of climate change and pollution. This has posed serious challenges for the society at large and to the planet Earth. Therefore, lesser developed countries, including India, have the opportunity to chart a different growth path which is more benign to the society at large as well as the nature and its ecosystems. Some of the aspects of such a green growth strategy, to my mind, can include green accounting of the GDP, maintaining and enhancing the natural capital, sustainable production systems that are based on the closed loop or circular economy, sustainable consumption, and a lifestyle that focuses on natural and local solutions. One example of nature-based solution that comes to my mind is a trend towards natural, traditional, organic farm systems which provide fresh and unprocessed food to the local consumers. We'll be having the privilege to listen to very experienced panelists who have been working on this topic of the nature-based solutions. As you all may be aware of the studies that show that 30% of the Paris Agreement goals in terms of containing the global temperature less than 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century can be actually achieved through the nature-based solutions. That shows the importance of the topic that will be discussed in detail in this panel discussion. While the term nature-based solution has been in use in academia for less than 2 decades now, it has got significance only during last 5 years or so, with the European Union putting NBS at the core of EU Research and Innovation Program in 2015. It has become a subject matter of international dialogues with a series of webinars being organized, particularly in the last 2 years. As we all understand that IUCN has undertaken pioneer work in defining and developing the nature-based solution principles and operational framework in terms of global standards and their criteria and associated indicators. There are 8 important criteria on which nature-based solutions are to be assessed. These include societal challenges, designing for scale, ensuring net biodiversity gains, ensuring economical feasibility, ensuring inclusive governance, ensuring balanced trade-offs, implementing and incorporating adaptive management, and ensuring that these solutions can be mainstreamed and they are sustainable. I would like to share the quote from the lead author, Mr. Ignacio Palomo, from an article titled Assessing Nature-Based Solutions for Transformative Change, which has been published in One Earth on the eve of World Environment Day, that is yesterday evening. And I quote, "The decade of restoration gives us the opportunity to make peace with nature. Nature-based solutions, by integrating human well-being and ecosystem conservation, hold the potential to open a new phase in our relationship with nature. It is in our hands, by working together with nature, to accelerate restoration efforts and deliver transformative change towards the sustainable development goals." Unquote. This panel discussion will therefore explore nature-based solutions as an alternative and non-traditional approach to solve environmental and societal challenges through restoration of degraded ecosystems, sustainable agriculture, aquaculture, and financing of nature-based solutions. With this, I would like to convey my best wishes for the success of this panel discussion and the series of panel discussions that will follow. I once again thank the IIFM Alumni Association and the IIFM Center for Community Forestry for organizing this panel discussion. And I sincerely look forward to listening to the eminent experts and their suggestions towards concrete actionable strategies to make positive changes in our natural ecosystems, which are in harmony with the pressing developmental needs of humankind. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. That was very enlightening and very aptly pointed out the indicators on which the discussion as well as the theme of this topic will be surrounding. We will have definitely the actions oriented towards the points you have very rightly raised, and we will also like to conclude this panel discussions with an action-packed report which should deal with the ground implementation covering all the 8 aspects you have discussed about the nature-based resources. Now, before we actually go into the panel discussion, I would first sincerely request an apology from all of you, because it seems to be some technical issue on this particular platform where people are joining and getting dropped off. So we are trying to sort this out, and we are also trying to evaluate an alternate where we can have a parallel meeting set up on a Zoom platform or somewhere, so that we can shift immediately if there is an issue in that, if more number of, because we are receiving lots of messages of people not able to join. That's one thing. Now, we would like to move into the panel discussion part of it, and I would request Bharti to take over the dais. And just a small paragraph to add on to this. This World Environment Day of 2021, as you have seen, you must have noticed, it is working on the theme of reimagine, recreate, and restore. And this decade of starting from 2021, UN has declared as the decade of ecosystem restoration. So this has been the basic motivation for the Alumni Association and ICCF to evolve a topic around nature-based solution in specific to ecosystem restoration. And that has been the guiding principle for us to start a series of discussion with an eminent topic like this, which is quite much a need of the hour today, and which will guide the actions over the next 10 years period, because 2030 is going to be one landmark year where the world may witness a huge number of changes, and as the SDGs mature and as the national determined contributions and commitments come to a conclusion, and the achievements will have to be scaled in terms of the actual achievements vis-a-vis the committed ones. So as we enter into this decade, unfortunately, heavily marred with a pandemic situation covering the entire humanity, which has brought down the effectiveness and efficiency of people by more than 40-50%. But then hope survives, and optimistic as we are sure that we will overcome all these challenges very fast and move ahead on the targets of the ecosystem restorations and the climate change mitigations which we have set as IIFM as an institution. So here we are. Let us move into the panel discussion. Once again, I welcome all the panelists and all the chief guests and all the participants who have come there. I would like to introduce Ms. Bharti Joshi, a prominent IIFMite, a very vocal IIFMite who has been known in her field for a great deal of time and over 2 decades now. And she has done fantastic work with her initiative, Indian Grameen Services. So she would be the main moderator, supported by Shweta Bhagwat. So Bharati, it's all over to you. The dais is all yours. Please go ahead and start.
Thank you, Ashish. So I think a lot of background being said and very well said by Dr. Amitabh Pandey and Dr. Manmohan Yadav and Ashish. So I'll straight away get into the topic. And we know we all are here today to talk about nature-based solutions as a pathway for ecosystem restoration. Ecosystem restoration is not new in the sense that we all know that it can take many forms. It can take the form of cleaning a river, cleaning a coastline, or growing trees, greening the cities, or reviving the gardens. Essentially, the natural systems, the nature-based solutions that we are talking about for ecosystem restoration use the power of functioning ecosystems as infrastructure to provide natural services that can benefit the environment as well as the society. But that today, we are talking about something as natural as nature-based solutions as an alternative and a non-traditional approach shows that how much we have diverged. And it is as part of this course correction that today we have this eminent panel, bedecked with experts that have those have come from diverse fields and who will throw light on this theme, bringing various perspectives and experiences. We had planned to start with context, but now, owing to the situation and how far we have progressed currently in this conversation, we plan to learn about various studies that help us establish a business case for nature-based solutions to ecosystem restoration. We'll also learn that these studies are not just limited to academic discourse, but have actually influenced policies and programs in India. We'll take specific examples which the panelists will bring in to illustrate how NBS works in different sectors and subsectors. We'll talk about institutional frameworks, collaborations, role of technology and finance in this process. We'll also take the perspective of small and marginal farmers, the communities who bear the brunt of nature-based solutions as well as who are at the brunt of environmental degradation, and try to see these solutions from their perspective, to see the problems as well as the prospects. How they can be empowered to adopt and embrace NBS will also be part of our discussion. So with this background, I'd like to invite Dr. Madhu Verma, one of our eminent panelists, to start this discussion and focus mainly on what is the business case for uptaking nature-based solutions for restoration, and what is her experience working in diverse fields, because when we were students, we were taught about the cases of Bhoj wetland and how environmental assessment as well as valuation of the ecosystem benefits that Bhoj wetland brought was actually news in the academia. So how have these studies also influenced policy and programs? So Dr. Verma, I welcome you. Please take the seat.
Thank you, Bharti, and thank you, Dr. Yadav, Amitabh, and everyone, Alumni Association, for inviting me to this wonderful event. It's like homecoming to me. And I must confess that my entire life, entire work pertains to nature-based solutions, as Bharti very rightly said. When I joined IIFM, the very first such study which I conducted on Bhoj wetlands and pertained to providing solutions, providing benefits to the city of Bhopal by making interventions which are actually using natural properties of ecosystem. That's what nature-based solutions are all about. So nature-based solutions, and still now I'm working on nature-based solutions intensively, in fact, now. So as we all, try to understand, try to also portray kind of benefits that we get from so-called engineering structures, the hardcore, construction that we try to make to provide lots of benefits to the system. But we tend to forget that these kind of hard approaches are not very resilient. They don't have such safety mechanisms, and they don't have biodiversity, first of all, into them. They just, one particular function they try to actually portray, they try to actually address. So nature-based solutions definitely are getting popularized, are being, assessed by many such, business models, because they provide multiple benefits. You make one intervention, but you get multiple so-called co-benefits out of it. Like you conserve the catchment, which is just, maybe by doing plantation, what kind of benefits that you get are immense, which are, as Bharti rightly said, using the word functioning ecosystem. Dead ecosystem will not give you these benefits. The functioning ecosystem will give you these benefits, and the benefits are many in nature. When we conserve the habitat, conserve the catchment, by doing plantation, we get water conservation done, we get water provisioning done, we get soil conservation done, nutrient cycling, carbon sequestration, and so on and so forth. In fact, in about lots of other works, we have listed more than 40 ecosystem services coming out of these ecosystems. So starting from my work on Bhoj wetland, and I also must also confess that in the entire journey of my work for NBS, I'm always partnered with IIFM students, which is a great thing to happen. And I take pride in saying so, and kind of knowledge we gathered working together has been immense. And I think I must have been pampered because I always work with IIFMites, of course, besides just many other people, but always have IIFM students at my side to actually take the glory forward. So very first study, Nishita Bakshi joined me. Let me just quickly run through because this is a platform to also confess and to also acknowledge kind of effort and support I got from all of them in my entire journey. It would not have been possible without them. Nishita joined me in Bhoj wetland study, then followed by Atanu Rakshit, who worked with me, study of CSO. We tried to work out the evaluation methodology, which was further used in the NPV committee set up by the Supreme Court. And Shweta joined me in the 13th Finance Commission study, which is a landmark study we had done to create a kind of understanding and appreciation amongst the policymakers to understand the value of nature. Then Munish Sikka Dhaval joined me in studies for agricultural study that we did for tea and a couple of others. Then Dhaval further worked me in NTCS study. We worked on the value of tiger habitats. Chandan joined me in the same study. Priyanka worked with me, Priyanka Batra, in the study on capturing carbon from the market and a couple of other things we had done. Gitanjali worked in the Himachal study, and Charu Tiwari worked with me again in this NTCS study of part 2, in which Prabhakar also joined. Parul also helped me in that study. And I'm so happy that Swapan partnered me, Swapan Mehra worked as a partner in many of the studies that we had conducted. And he took the challenges of the field and did amazing work to help us out in attaining our objectives. And I'm so blessed after joining WRI for past 1.5 years. I'm joined by Parul Sharma, who's a lead researcher in a very kind of a flagship study I'm doing for WRI, having joined WRI, on reimagining agricultural ecosystems. That's what is the title of this year's theme of WED. And then joined by Charu Tiwari again as a consultant, and I'm having Assi Guha and Elfin also working with me. So with this particular note, that has been my journey with the students across various projects. So starting from Bhoj wetland, definitely I was realizing that a lot of interventions being made in the city of Bhopal through this project by creating a lot of engineering structures around, the Bhoj wetland. The Gabion structures, were constructed, the toe walls were constructed, channels were made to actually control the flow of sewage. Many more things were done. But we realized nobody was bothered about what would happen when the project ends, how you take it forward. So we thought, let us assess what contribution this particular Bhoj wetland makes to the society, to the human well-being. And we listed ecosystem services and worked out the values, did modeling exercise using Stella model to demonstrate the return on investment, the return that you get on account of making certain changes in these ecosystems, and what would it lead to. And we demonstrated this would be the effect if you have a business as usual case, this would be the effect if you change a particular scenario. And really, not just we did the work, I also realized you also have to have a kind of a power, a confidence of communicating your outcomes to n number of stakeholders. It became first a study in the domain that we involved all sorts of stakeholders, even top from policymakers, chief secretary to secretary, principal secretary, municipal corporation, the corporator, to dhobis, the washerman community and the fisherman community. Everyone was under one roof at IIFM once upon a time. So that was the beauty of work. So that's what I'm trying to convey. When we conduct such work, we must involve both the providers and the beneficiaries. Otherwise, the studies are incomplete, the work is incomplete. And being at IIFM, I learned this, art and skill of actually combining all such techniques together, and immense got. So this study led to actually, I must say with great pride, that fetching the title of Ramsar site to Bhoj wetland of Bhopal, and still now. And then they realized that besides engineering interventions, they had to make some soft approaches for that, treating the catchment instead of getting water from Narmada River. Why don't you treat the catchment of this wetland? So this kind of interventions were made through this. Coming to the next study of Himachal Pradesh, which I did, talked about working out the value of forest for the first time in India when we did total economic valuation of forest of Himachal state. And there was no such charge for diversion of forest resources at that time, and charge was very minimal, assessed on the basis of timber that you fell, the NPFPs that you lost, that is the thumb rule being used, and nothing else beyond was imagined that time. So we reimagined that time, way back in 1999, that many more benefits get lost when you divert forests. Make a whole list of, ecosystem services and try to work out, sort of guesstimates were done because it was a very short-term study, but it did make a huge ripple effect in the entire system of Himachal state. And the chief secretary, the charismatic one, imposed a kind of a economic instrument in the process called as compensation for the loss of ecosystem value when you ask for diversion of forest, which triggered actually an order from Supreme Court to set up a committee to work out the net present value of forest felling in the forest diversion in the country, in which Atanu joined, and we worked out that particular value and got enacted through centrally empowered committee in the system. So this goes on. Actually, I'll come back maybe in the next. So this study was wanted to convey they have been nature-based solutions. We said the hard solutions, the engineering ones, maybe they will provide some benefits, but they're not actually sustainable kind of benefits that you get. Nature-based solutions tend to be low cost, less risky, and quite assured. Of course, they don't have a magic wand to make a change immediately. They take time. They're slow growing. Like they have a transition time to actually fructify and provide their benefits. But they are much more resilient, much more biodiverse in nature, and provide much larger set of benefits as compared to what you get from the engineering kind of intervention. So that has been, and this continues now. Maybe I'll come back in the next question to talk more about how these other studies influence the decision-making process. Maybe let others speak, and then I'll come back to you. Thank you, Bharti.
Thank you, ma'am. So you have interestingly talked about this the compensation part, which actually is about a study leading to something which is a directive with direct benefit to the people who are displaced. And today we see that communities who are displaced and relocated to other areas actually get a fixed compensation value. So that is a development, and I think same happens with the displacement projects as well. So at the ground level, there are several other similar cases where, for example, farmers are adopting organic produce but not getting the markets because the purchase price or selling price for them is the same as non-organic produce. So is there any kind of a valuation or which can sort of benefit these kinds of more localized sort of problems or inequitable benefit distribution? And secondly, I'd also like to request you to talk more about the state financing part, because now we know that even the money that comes from the center to the states is influenced by these kinds of considerations.
Yeah, surely. You have touched the pulse, I should say, in talking in terms of the agricultural sector, definitely, and reaching down to the ground level reality. Well, having joined WRI, I've been given this huge responsibility of leading the flagship study of WRI on, you are all working in rural sector. Rather, I would come back to you for my own work after a while. So there's a huge report, you all are aware of, the Dalwai Committee report, which talks about making interventions on site and on the market, linkages, on ground, making certain changes. And so there's a huge voluminous report has come out, and then in a couple of years ago, and by 2023, they have to actually double farmers' income. But a lot of reforms could not happen, and unless the institutional processes are being set right, things cannot actually change. So we are looking at this particular work with a great challenge. So we are using agroecological approaches for particular sake, and looking at the entire value chain of agriculture, agroecological system. The whole landscape is being looked into. And we have immense example. Yadav talked about organic farming. We have so-called zero-budget natural farming, which is being re-christened now as participatory community-based farming, because nothing is zero budget. Actually, you require, even if you contribute your own value, own labor, it has got a value. So it is community-based practice. In fact, a paper written with Parul is in the press, will be coming out soon on this particular topic. So we are trying to look at the entire value chain, because you are making interventions for whom? And there's a report rightly titled as Doubling Farmers' Income. We're working for farmers. So you must trace down the entire linkage through value chain, and any change made across the value chain, just as a typical business model works, a percentage should come back to farmers. So that's what, the outcome of studies should always lead to community, and you must involve these, individuals in your entire work of, consultation of your own studies. In fact, our committee is led by Dr. Ashok Khosla of Development Alternatives CEO and the founder. And he suggested, Madhu, why don't you involve certain women farmers? In fact, we are talking to Vijay intensively because he worked with, women farmers. And he said, they will give you the ground reality better than anyone else. You can, even if you go and see that, you will not get. So I'm again, in touch with Vijay. We have spoken to IntelliCap. We have a person here sitting in from IntelliCap as well, trying to reach out to these people to understand the ground reality and accordingly provide solutions. So whatever we will suggest, we are using ecological approach again that I just said earlier. We are trying to make so-called invisibles from the system visible. Any intervention being made to nature-based solution, like it's not just plantation which is a nature-based solution. It is the action which you make to create a system. A system provides you n number of so-called co-benefits. So when you make organic farming interventions, you of course growing organic crop, you change your entire composition of manure and everything. But at the same time, you're doing water conservation, you're fixing the soil, you're increasing soil fertility, you're sequestering carbon, you're providing natural control of pest population, you're providing pollination service, immense number of services. And they are also, agriculture is the net, it contains more carbon than net emitter. It is rather repository of carbon. So this is kind of co-benefits flow. We do have a system now evolved gradually in forestry sector to compensate for that, which I'll talk in my next, issue that you pointed out, Bharti. But just as I have this kind of a dream in mind to realize, just as we worked out for forestry sector to bring compensation to the ground people. Of course, still there are certain hurdles, but at least we could convince Finance Commission to pay for what forestry sector contributes. I want to make a case for agriculture sector as well. It is not just, it is per hectare yield basis that you should assess agriculture sector. Look at in totality, what is the total economic value contribution to agriculture? You must look at it. And then accordingly making a case on behalf of so-called farmers and all stakeholders in agricultural system to take it forward to authorities and bring much larger compensation than only the price that they get from the market. That's what, we reimagined way back with the Marshall study. We are trying to also take it forward in terms of recreating systems and restoring. And I think after the pandemic, COVID-19, we also have to press the refresh button. I will add fourth R into it. Because lots of these happened, desertification, deforestation, degradation, destruction, domestication of, wild animals. So let's remove these Ds and bring these, more R's in the system. We talk so much about it. So we have to press a refresh button. And for that particular sake, we have to change our, I would say, our own lenses. We just looked at from very, very financial lens to look at what a sector contributes. We don't look at from social, cultural, economic, ecological. And now I'm part of an international process called as IPBIS, Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. We talk about biodiversity a lot. We talk about indigenous knowledge system, which is, I think, languishing, and many of you are working in that sector. They have such cost-effective solutions. I really marvel in the work that Dr. Anil Gupta has done, provided to all of us this kind of a knowledge through his innovations, work, and many of our alumni, grew from Vijay, the whole IntelliCap, So you learned a lot, and you are taking this baton forward to implement these solutions on ground. I'm so proud of that our own alumni has taken this task forward and they're effectively implementing this. This is what, how it works. And talking about the Finance Commission interventions, ironically in the country, I was part of that particular work from the very beginning. After finishing our study for CSO, a Supreme Court committee was set up to work out the net present value of forest. We had an instrument called as claim in Himachal, but that triggered, for the countrywide work through Supreme Court order. And we did work for the Kanchan Chopra committee. I was a consultant, provided, using my Himachal example, took it forward, and this further had gone to centrally empowered committee, and all consultations were done, and the rates of divergence were fixed. So when you divert forest, you are earning revenue, actually. That's what's happening in the society, in the economy. So you're losing an ecosystem, and you're getting a money for doing only plantation. There's no match for losing an ecosystem and just doing plantation. Go for 3-story work, which is a story of forest, to look at the grasses, shrubs, herbs, and then go for plant, the trees kind of crops. Plus, what you lose in terms of biodiversity by diverting forest can never be retrieved back by artificial creation. So this is no actual substitute for that. But what I've been watching, having done work for Bhoj wetland, for CSO, and then for NPV, that there is no such value of. There's a Supreme Court directive, we all know. There's a directive for forest policy to keep 2/3 of the area of hill states under forest and tree cover. And we have to achieve this mammoth task of 33% of forest cover in the country, not as forest and tree cover, because we also look at trees outside forest, because we don't have enough area under forest which is available for doing plantation. So I was surprised to see, and I felt very sad that we have a value of diversion and we are earning revenue out of it. The whole Campa money was set up using NP as a major source besides compulsory afforestation and other taxes that you collect. But there was no such money being paid to states where the fiscal disability is being created by not diverting forests. You must keep intact. Let Himachal keep their forest intact so that Delhi can get water, but Delhi doesn't pay back to Himachal. So, and then I realized, having had a chance to work in lots of international platforms, myself experiencing these payment for ecosystem services kind of models, that if we try to work out one-to-one basis, it would not happen in India. Because you have heterogeneous populations, diverse backgrounds, and such complex situations. So that made me, triggered me to develop a proposal for the 13th Finance Commission, and Sweta joined me in that lead. And I know how much we traveled across the country and tried to make a case for compensating for conservation. And we had such long presentations to Finance Commission to trigger this idea in their mind. It will not get through in just one go. So at least we were able to change the allocation of grants from 1,000 crores in 12th Finance Commission, where they talk about protecting, forest wealth, to actually taking care of, we did a complex, calculations, used lots of such models of total economic value, opportunity cost, a kind of a equivalence factor, if I remember correctly, that Shweta very, very enthusiastically worked for that. And we gave this recommendations to Finance Commission and convinced them that you will have to increase the grant. It increased to 5,000 crores, but we did not stop there. We said they only took care of only forest, cover. And it's not just forest cover, which is important. There are a lot of other factors: biodiversity, your flora, fauna, fragmentation, how much protected area you contain with yourself. Lots of Swapan, Dhaval, and Rohit joined me in that task. And we developed a very complex formula for that and convinced Finance Commission. We felt so happy at the end of it. Not just 5,000 grant was increased, but a value came in the actually formula of Finance Commission, which is divisible pool of taxes. Not grant is a small amount, and divisible pool which the Finance Commission gets from the central government is a huge amount. 7.5% is a huge value. It increased the grant, which is just 5,013 Finance Commission, increased to I think 1,63 crores in actually 14th Finance Commission. This is what is the beauty of the work that you do genuinely by actually consulting. We had huge consultations across the country, top, center, bottom, left, right, everywhere. We had met so many people and gathered real knowledge from field. And they worked for us to actually give us the kind of a complex formula. Then it did not stop here. In the 15th Finance Commission, Ministry approached us. In fact, don't do your work independently, work on behalf of the Ministry, which is a great thing to happen for us. So we work on behalf of MOEF. Again, Sopan joined me, Ayura joined us in this particular domain. And we again further worked very intensively to provide, said that not just, you require, and then again, we realized that to coming to your point, that benefits should go back to the communities because they are the ones who are engaged in conservation. So far as the grants were going, they were going to the department. They were tied, of course, untied for 2 years in the beginning, then tied for your preparation of working plan and a couple of things were set up. But then when you got a compensation on behalf of, or for the fact that you are creating fiscal disabilities for not diverting forests, so you're compensated for that loss of revenue. It went to state coffers. And when to state coffers, it did not go to the department or the sector. This is a gap kind of thing. And yesterday I was sitting in a discussion of Ministry of External Affairs of Government of Germany and iForest discussion. We had a global branch kind of a discussion over these issues only. So we made it a point that 7.5% is fine, but at the same time, you must keep a proportion in terms of grant. Because state governments will take their own call to give that money to the department, or they would not give it to department. But if you have a grant, it will go directly to the department. So we proposed that. But again, of course, it convinced them to increase the formula weightage to 10% now for forest and ecology. It used to be for forest conservation, went to forest and ecology for the larger sector. But again, this question looms in front, whether money will be going to the department or the sector, whether it will be going to the beneficiaries or the providers of these services. It is huge money. In the first year, 85,000 crores were released for forestry sector and 4 more years to come in the Finance Commission. So of course, things are happening. I mean, I remember talking to the same level of people, even foresters, I will confess here, Dr. Tambe is sitting here and we had a discussion. People used to, find the values to be very abstract values. how can you get benefits of carbon? How can you get benefits in terms of soil quality, water conservation? But COVID has given us a lesson. We learned the value of oxygen. So that's what we tried to convey through that particular kind of model, and we succeeded to quite an extent, but still it is a long way to travel. Until what you all are working, sitting in a panel, and besides the panel, I know many of you work in these sectors, you work with communities, benefits should go down to the providers of the services. I'm the provider, but money doesn't come to me, it just gets halted somewhere else. So that is what is still a kind of a, so we have to actually further convince them to make a business case out of it. Then only things will actually happen on ground. Thank you, Bharti.
Ma'am, I'll come back to you because I have a couple more things that are coming out from this very valuable insights that you are sharing. So I'll go to Samrat. Shweta, Samrat is there connected?
Yes, Samrat would be there. Yeah. I think we also have Vijay with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start.
Samrat is there. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Hi, Samrat. Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. So I was just providing you the plank because you are also coming from an institution which is the Samrat of financing of natural resource management in India. So I think this started, NABARD has been financing NRM for a long time, and now we are going back to the same models. So that way, I think that you are the best person to illuminate about what are the financing options, what are the challenges, how risk assessment is done. So over to you.
Yeah, thanks Bharti for giving that small introduction that gives us a small kind of a to me. So I'll just start my, again I would like to thank Professor Manmohan Yadav for laying out the theme for today's discussion. He touched upon quite a, few points which are very relevant. So just to begin where Professor Madhu Verma has, touched upon, regarding the 8 principles that Professor Manmohan Yadav was mentioning, I'll just start with one, that is looking at scale. Okay, now here I would like to bring where NABARD stands today. NABARD is one of the 4 All India financial institutions. The other 3 are SIDBI, Exim Bank and NHAI. So, and NABARD is the biggest. It is bigger than the, all the 3 others taken together. It has a size of around 6.5 lakh crore, the balance sheet size. Now, apart from that, regarding the financing, now NABARD is essentially a wholesale bank. If you want to see it that way, and few others who would like to do it as a finance organization. So that's one of the business functions that they do. Other than that, it has a major role in development. Okay, and through the development also, there are quite a few products which lead up to financing by the retail banks. So NABARD has done a few experimentation over the years in the sense that it has come out with a few subsidiaries. Now these subsidiaries are looking at financing, solutions in a way of different products. So if NABARD is a wholesale bank, I would say, and it has a lot of development grants, I will come to it in 5 minutes from now. So they have those development grants to trigger or spur, action at the field level where it is required. Other than that, NABARD also has 3 subsidiaries, which are NAPKisan, NAPFinance, and NAPFins, NAPKisan, and NAPSamriddhi. These are essentially retail banking solutions for the sector, as agriculture and allied, all sectors taken together, even off-farm sector. Apart from that, NABARD also has a NAB Ventures, which looks at equity support for early stage and mid-stage ventures. Other than that, recently they have come out with another subsidiary, which is NAB Sangrakshan, which is, I think, very critical because it provides guarantee solutions. Apart from that, we have NAPCons, which provides advisory services. And we have a NAP Foundation also, which looks at social sector initiatives through grants. Now, when we are looking at nature-based solutions, I would like to talk about few things that NABARD has already been doing. see, if you, somebody mentioned about sustainable agriculture. I mean, when we look at sustainable agriculture, we essentially are talking about 5 pillars. So the 5 pillars are: first is moisture, whether the moisture is available from an external surface water body or it is in situ conservation. So that's the first thing. Second is we look at the soil. Soil, whether it is a dead soil with very low or nil organic carbon, and other is a live soil which has organic carbon as well as microbes. Third is we looked at the seed. Seed is whether you using exotic seeds or it is indigenous varieties. Fourth, I'm looking at farm diversity. So I don't look at agriculture per se as such, but when you look at farm diversity, it looks at all the aspects: horticulture, agriculture, livestock, all things are combined. So farm diversity, how much of that is built in? Fifth is the most essential pillar, where we, as sorts of IIFM, have a lot of things to contribute. That is farm ecology. See, agriculture has to be seen as a part of agroecology system. So farm ecology entails, having some forestry trees and how it contributes to enriching the entire farm. So these are the 5 pillars, and we had commissioned a study. We have a Department of Economic Analysis and Research, which has a lot of funds, which had funded this kind of study, and they had come out with a manual also, as well as few caselets also, which a lot of people at the field level practitioners can use that to take the sustainable agriculture to a new level and through a proper scale. Again, I will re-emphasize that. Now, we have had several implementable solutions spread over different funds that we have created. You look at Watershed Development Fund, which essentially, again, if you look at sustainable agriculture, then we are talking about the moisture and the soil, essential. But right now, we have also built in Watershed Plus activities, as well as looking at sustainable solutions, where we have those institutions taking over once the project finishes, the grant component comes to an end. So if you look at the Watershed Development Fund, which essentially follows a rich to valley approach, plus it also takes in a lot of new things which have come about as regards pinch-hit development. Now, Watershed Development Fund, if you look at, we have already implemented more than 1,200 around 1,000 projects. Ranging from 1,000 hectare size to a little bit more also. So these have been implemented mainly through NGO partners, and we have disbursed around 1,600 crores already, which has been released. The commitment would be much higher, of 2,000 or 2,500 crores. Now, another important fund that NABARD is very, actively involved is, if you look at watershed development projects in a year, every year across all the states, we do say 50 to 60 projects, maybe slightly more. And next we have this Tribal Development Fund. Now, if you look at the farm diversity and farm ecology part of it, now this Tribal Development Fund projects essentially looks at working with tribal farmers and having their farm in a way which places a lot of stress on farm diversity as well as farm ecology. It is mainly agri-horticulture component and plus kitchen garden also. And it looks into those fuel, fodder, fuel, nutrition, and medicinal plants needs also. So this is regarding orchard-based tribal development fund. We have now diversified a little bit, where we are looking at livelihood-based projects, where the core component could be a livelihood, because tribals are mainly dependent on small ruminants like goatery, piggery, poultry, duckery. So we are looking at that aspect also, and this will continue. But the significant thing is through tribal projects, whatever institutions that develop to village planning committee, village watershed committee, they become functional FPOs at a later stage. Now, I can talk in length in each of these funds for say 1 or 2 hours, but since Bharti and Shweta has restricted me to 10 minutes, so I'm finding it a challenge. I don't have a laid out script in front of me, but I'll be speaking from different experiences, so that my aim of this entire participating in this discussion is, as Archana would know, to spur or trigger the next level of discussion. So I'll leave it at that. So I'll be leaving a lot of pointers on that. Next, apart from Tribal Development Fund and Watershed Development Fund, we have climate funds. Now, as you would know, NABARD is the national implementing entity for Adaptation Fund Board. Second is Green Climate Fund, and third is the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change in India, which has been constituted under MOFCC. Am I going too fast, or it's okay?
No, you're going.
Hello? It's okay?
Yeah, Samrat, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So the climate change funds, essentially, if you look at Green Climate Fund, I mean, we have funded 3 projects in India. But each of these 3 projects is very significant regarding the scale. Again, if I might sound repetitive, let me be, but that's the important point. So one is the private funding which has happened through Tata Capital Limited, Green Climate Fund, where NABARD is the main project holder, and is financed Tata Clean Capital Limited. Through it funds different different organizations for rooftop solar energy. So that is around 2.5 megawatt. And it is supposed to reach 5.2 million beneficiaries. Apart from that, we have that Odisha, where groundwater recharge. These are big size projects. I mean, what I'm talking about is 200, 300 crores. So another is Odisha, where groundwater recharge and recharging of artificial tanks and bringing the farm income of farmers to a different level. So that's another project which is being implemented in Odisha. And third is the project which is in the pipeline, which will shortly be under consideration for sanction. That is multi-state for small tea holders, targeted at small tea holders to increase their production and do it in a climate resilient way. So these are the main 3 projects. But essentially, one is that through Tata Clean Capital, that is a kind of a concessional funding. It has a little bit of interest portion into that. And it has also some kind of first loss and second loss guarantee covers built in. So apart from that, other 2 are essentially grant projects, and there are a lot of state governments which have prepared concept notes for funding under Green Climate Fund, which I have been part of. I have prepared a few project reports on that also. Those are for accessing essentially grant funds, but the scale is more than 100 crores. So the challenge is always regarding implementing these big projects. So there are a lot of partner institutions to be involved, and frameworks are challenging, difficult to implement. Why I say that, I come with another fund which we are also implementing, which we are also part of as implementing entity. That is National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. This is with MOFCC. So there are 30 projects, and the outlay is around 850 crores. So these are essentially projects which are size of around 225 crores and being implemented through various state government departments. Now that is because the outcomes are so challenging that even those departments are finding it that not so easy, because we have a very stringent monitoring framework for that. So they are trying to rope in other partners. One of the projects is in MP, where you will find a very interesting collaboration happening, where Water, BIF, and Royal Bank of Scotland, one of our IIFMites is part of that project. So bank also involved. So they together have formed a consortium for implementing this kind of project. That is, again, within the scale of 25 crores. And other interesting projects which look at, say, nature-based solutions, aquaculture, sustainable agriculture. So those projects are also part of that. It has a, huge diversity. If you want to look at projects, what can be replicated, recreated, if you can, people interested can go through that list. Now, I'll just come. Now I'll come to 2 important points that which Professor Madam Madhu Verma has touched upon. One is the value chain. We talk about it very loosely, because when we talk about value chain, I think of it as a value chain development process which has to happen. Now it cannot be, because few people will talk only with respect to the produce. But if you look at a value chain, it has, I look at it, say, from 6 different dimensions. One is the produce. is the market access, both for the produce, the byproduce, and the raw material consumables which comes in. So if you can look at it from that perspective, I think then you understand. I mean, I understand value chain development from that perspective. Another is the important part which I am very interested in. I keep on disturbing Pandey sir quite a while. I mean, quite a few times. I mean, he gets a little bit. I mean, say, why are you so thinking so deep? I mean, let us take it one by one. It's a scope of blended finance. Okay, now if you see, I'll give you an example. I mean, I know Vijay has been given. I mean, he has taken one of the terms of references talking about FPUs. Now, this is a recent thing which is happening, which you know it is happening, but you have to take a notice of it from a different point of view, in the sense that 9,000 farmer producer organizations have already been formed. Now, if you're talking about sustainability, the institutional sustainability has to come. I mean, that has to be a point of discussion. So FPOs are gaining strength. It will gain strength in the few years to come. 9,000 FPOs already formed, and government has declared about 10,000 FPOs. Then the fine line of distinction is between, 9,000 FPOs, those are essentially evolving, and Bharti would still, discuss about that word, why I have used that. But see, they are emerging as multi-service, multi-product type of FPOs. I mean, right now when the 10,000 FPOs, is being talked, it is being talked about cluster specific, district, particular crop specific, product specific. There is some kind of a difference of opinion between a lot of people who are involved in this entire program. But let's see how it emerges. If you see the potential, India has suppose 50 to 50,000, 60,000 FPOs which are still to be formed. If you are looking at sustainable institutions. Now, that's the, horizon we are looking into. Now, FPOs, why are they important? One important, see, NAPKISAN is one of the retail financiers of NABARD who essentially finances FPOs. They have been able to finance only 100 FPOs. Okay, now another good thing which has emerged where state government has played a role. If you look at Tamil Nadu, okay, Tamil Nadu has committed or pledged, it is not parked yet, but it has earmarked 261 crores with NAPKISAN. Now, why I mention this, this 261 crores is, the proportions of it is divided. One is that credit guarantee support, right? Another is interest subvention support, so that you make the finance available at a concession rate. Otherwise, whatever is happening, someone at NAPKISAN at 12%, it still makes, the viability is still under question. So that is the interest rate subvention which is given. A third part which I would like to mention is the mezzanine capital. Now, as some of you might be aware, the mezzanine capital is a tier 2 capital, which is called a subordinated debt because it is unsecured. Now, what it gives a benefit to the FPOs that if it has a higher net worth or equity net worth support or equity support, it can raise higher degree of loan from the institutional sources. So when you're talking about equity and net worth, so these two are tier 1 and tier 2 are taken together. So that's the kind of support that this Tamil Nadu government has from its funds, and NAPKISAN also gains by it that it will take 5 years to mature FPOs, and when there's an option of converting this mezzanine capital into a FPO. That's how the mezzanine capital term comes from. So why I mentioned, yeah.
If I may it is linked to the FPO context that you have brought in. So I'll just add two of the queries that are linked to this. One is that how is this support, financing support, is it incentivizing specifically the nature-based solutions?
Yes.
And second question will be that is there a dovetailing of, say, NABARD's natural resource management financing with the FPO financing? Because now NABARD is doing both, promoting FPOs and continues to do watershed. So I've seen FPOs who are suffering on terms of, say, no water in their mango orchard, but then that is a different department. So is NABARD attempting to dovetail?
So I'm coming to it. See, now why I mentioned FPOs, that it will find relevance when I take 5 minutes to sum up what I've been saying. Now, see, this I mean, they're looking at how the FPOs can be made more. I mean, they'll gain maturity. They'll be sustainable. They'll be able to take a lot of initiatives forward, including sustainable agriculture. Now, what has I mean, of late, if you look at the agriculture infrastructure finance facility, okay. So agriculture infrastructure finance facility is not a fund. It is a finance facility that people have to understand. And what it talks about, say up to 2 crore, okay, they will be giving an interest rate subvention. And another part is up to 2 crore, whichever any entrepreneur, FPOs or primary agriculture cooperative societies, they take funds, financial institutions, they will have a guarantee cover. So it is under CGMC and other part is from NABARD also. So that's a guarantee cover which is also available. So what it leads to, it opens up the entire borrowing by entrepreneurs and FPOs also. So that's a facility, kind of facility which we as nature-based solutions we could look at, because the environment has, the scenario is going to that stage where the government wants to set up a social sector stock exchange. So that will have 3 essential entities. One is for-profit entities. Second will be NPOs, non-profit organizations, which are essentially NGOs. And third will be Section 8 companies. So there'll be a lot of, if you look at the funding which has happened over these 40,000 crores by 2018, which has happened. So out of it, 63% came from philanthropists, and other 37% came from CSR. So CSR funding will be an important part of this. Now, right now, when I come to this NBS ecosystem restoration as a financing facility, see, it has happened in the European Union where they have this financing facility. Now, in India, when we talk about blended finance, NABARD had initially implemented UPNRM projects, Umbrella Program for Natural Resource Management. Through that, we found, 40 or 50 million US dollars grant from KFW was, KFW had supported that. But that was, it had, say 100, if X was the loan amount, so there was 0.2X also given as grant as accompanying measures. But those projects did not scale, although the initiatives were very good. It was, if you look at diversification, there were a lot of initiatives which had that component. Now, if you're looking at a financing facility, setting up a financing facility at, say, MOFCC or by GEF or contribution from other sources, then if you look at the EU model, European Union model, the financing facility has 2 essential parts. One is the financing structure for private equity loans, concessional loans, hybrid instruments to come in. And second part is the technical assistance, where it is purely in the form of grant. So NABARD's programs efforts can be part of the technical assistance. And second is, through the social sector exchange or through dedicated fund facilities, the financing facility in the form of constitutional loans, equity, mezzanine capital, all those things can be built in. Even guarantees covers. So this is what I was trying to say. Another part of the, how to de-risk this entire thing is, if you look at one is guarantee covers. Second, guarantee covers are so many types: first loss, second loss. But another is the insurance and the reinsurance part. So that's that needs to be looked into. So I leave it at this stage. Probably when the next round of panel discussion opens, I'll be talking a little bit more. Thanks, Bharti, for giving this opportunity. Not?
Sorry, yeah. So Shweta informs me that there are some questions from the chat box from the audience. So Shweta, would you like to put some questions, the questions which are coming to Samrat and Dr. Verma? Shweta?
Can we take it at the end? Yeah, maybe a lot of things.
Yes, we will probably take that at end. What I'll suggest is, I think Ashish sir has something to say, add on to this. So regarding the meeting setup and the structure, so maybe let's let him probably say that first, and then we will probably think. Yeah.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Bharti. I never had any intention of interrupting a great panel discussion, but then I have a good news and a bad news. The good news I will share later. The bad news is that Google Meet is encountering huge problem across the world. That news is coming in, and especially in India, there's a lot of disruption. So we immediately have our try to set up some backup. So a couple of people are already working on setting up a Zoom link for continuing this meeting, and that will be shared within a few minutes. I hope so, in the chat box here, so that all of us can shift. It happened. I mean, I am reminded of a marriage where we were actually sitting and just about to have the dinner. It started raining, and within minutes we had to change the venue. So a similar kind of thing. And the good news is that I'm happy that the Google Meet has crashed, because World Environment Day 2021 is being celebrated, I guess, all over the world, largely through Google Meets. So this is the good news, that there are a lot of people discussing about World Environment Day, and things are going to fall in line, hopefully, after the pandemic. So this is it. So we have just to see, there are 4 other panelists who would like to join us, and they are not able to join because of the
Ashish.
Yeah.
Ashish, they are joining in Zoom directly. They are not coming here now.
Yeah. So what we'll do is
we'll give the chat number and request everyone to move there.
Yes, sir. So
Avinash is doing that.
Yeah. So in a minute or so, we will have the link on the chat. So now I just was wondering, in the audience, do we have anyone who would like to speak a little bit on this topic, who has some insights on this, who has some prior experience of NBS, maybe a field experience, or maybe a case to share, or maybe something which they have encountered, an issue or something? Of course, questions and answers we will take later once all the panelists come in. But I was just thinking, in the audience, we have an August presence of more than 70-75 people. So if anybody has anything to say, this is the moment for you. This is the opportunity for you to speak. We have a couple of minutes to fill in, and would like to.
Yeah. You can probably mention it in the chat, and if at all there is some issues with connection, then probably you can mention it in the chat, and we can get your speaker on.
Okay, so I'm not getting any indication from anyone to speak. Maybe
I can probably, yeah. So by the time we get the link, I think one of the things that probably we can talk about is actually also the role of frameworks. So if that's okay, then we can probably talk to Madhu ma'am about it.
Yeah. I had seen Dr. Sandeep Tambe in the audience.
Yeah, even I had seen him. If Sandeep sir is here, then I think it'll be great, because he has done some great work. I mean, in Sikkim, which is very pertinent to what we are discussing. And I think some insights from there will be very helpful for the audience.
I think he's left the meeting. No issues. So, okay, if you want to take on the discussion with respect to the framework, we can as well go ahead on that, or should we wait for, I think we are setting up in the Zoom. We have a couple of minutes. So, Bharti, would you like to take one of the questions in that case, if it pertains to the Dr. Madhu Verma or Samrat?
Yeah, I think we have already a lot of questions. Shweta, can you have the chat box list? I can start.
Yeah, there's one question where there's one comment coming from Alicia Seth. She wanted to say something. So if Alicia, can you just unmute yourself and
good afternoon to everyone. This is Alicia Seth. I'm probably getting the admission, like I'm getting into the IIFM this year. So I'm really interested into all this, the climate change issues and all the sustainable developments that are going on in the country and all over the world. So my insights is that even though I'm not that much experienced in this field, but yes, I am very curious and very passionate about this work that you all are doing. So I wanted to have some insights, like if I need to start right now from this moment, then what should I do for protecting this planet from all those crises that we are facing right now?
I think the first thing you should do is take admission in IIFM.
That I have already.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll be able to. So, Bharti, Shweta, we have our young friend Alisha, whom we would like to give some this thing, and we're fortunate that we have so many professors and faculty members and a galaxy of IFMites right from the initial batches up to the latest batches. So you won't be falling short of any kind of advice. So we can have a quick answer to Alisha, and then we switch on to Madhu ma'am for the question you asked, Bharti.
So I'll just start off, because this is something that I also wrote in my LinkedIn profile today, which is about live simply, so others may simply live. So I think that is one part that we should all keep in mind, because now the planet cannot bear more of the pollution and more of the pressures and our consumption oriented living. So I'll start off with that, and I'll also request Shweta to add before we move on to others. Shweta? Shweta, you are on mute.
Yes, Bharti, I just noticed. Yeah, so I completely agree, Arisha. I know there is a spectrum of things that can be done. And I think like Ashish sir suggested, but I think that's what it is. There are many things that can be done. And the thing to learn is, first is to kind of understand the consequences and understand where you can pitch yourself in. And IFM can give you the direction, can help you see that direction. So I'm sure at IFM, when you come and get introduced to the different dimensions of what you want to do. See, there is so much in the world that everyone can do, but there is only so much that they can do in one lifetime. So that is what somebody had told me. So what I feel is key in this particular sense, getting a direction of what needs to be done is a place like IFM can offer you. And yeah, I mean, Arisha, I think we can always catch up anytime offline, social media, anywhere. And there are so many IFMites out there who can help you out with your questions. Meanwhile, I think by the time the link comes in, should we carry on with asking a few questions which we have been discussing about and which are very pertinent to today's discussion?
So maybe before we put in more questions, I have one question for Dr. Verma. Dr. Verma, you actually talked about a lot of institutions being pursued and sort of persuaded with data, and a lot of steps you have taken and a lot of persistence shown in getting something out in terms of real concrete changes. So what is your suggestions about those trying to navigate this diversified institutional environment where people or institutions with different time frames, different priorities and objectives actually have to be brought together? Yes. So any suggestions on what works, any experience you'd like to share?
Well, that's what I was trying to also convey in the beginning, that whenever you do some work, don't just look at that particular goal that you have in your mind with your own lens, because you visualize things, but look at the other side of the table, you know, how others would think about it. And also consider always the people for whom you're doing the work, people with the help of whom you're actually doing the work, involve everybody in the process. And there's so many institutions, and that's the beauty of working in India, that you have such immense number of institutions. Now I've moved to a different sector. I'm trying to understand, trying to get, my eyes are open now to see diversity of, NGOs working in this domain. I was much confined to, of course, you're talking to a number of NGOs, but still confined to government departments, ministries, line departments and all that. But now it is geo-NGO combination. This is the kind of stakeholder group that takes the baton forward. So, and then when you talk about so-called, it's packaging it in a different way such that I think it's convinced across different sections. When we say business model for NBS, I'll just take example from there. we were using a typical language of provider and a supplier and a user or a beneficiary. And then in the business case, you talk about customers, and then you are the investor. So you're bringing, the providers of money, providers of service in that domain, and those who are using the service in that domain, again, with a different word. And since the business models have a good scaling of power if they're successful models, so we are merging two things together. A typical business model with the conservation-based, kind of interventions, make them a kind of a case that they give you multiplier effects. We talked a lot about Keynesian theory in my class, and that's what we took forward in case of tiger study. One fine morning I got up and realized that how much a tiger reserve provides, let's try to work out an investment multiplier for that. A rupee invested in tiger reserve leads to what amount of ecosystem services within the economy. These services are flowing out of the, so-called site, the tiger reserves or tiger habitats, but they're getting parked maybe in agriculture sector, in domestic sector, in different other departments, other sectors, other economic systems, to try to capture that. And then we also need to consider, the whole landscape approach for that particular purpose, and all those actors, stakeholders, so-called, which exist need to be considered. And then you have plethora of institutions, like interventions have to be made at the policy level or at the market level or the institutions level. And then, so you must consider actors, so-called stakeholders from all these, domains, and then you make your approach very holistic every time you make any intervention. Then only your model will be successful. And same thing applies to a typical NBS model where you must incorporate all such institutions initiatives, because like we are reaching out to so many organizations now in our agroecological system study. All sorts of stakeholders, the experts, the policymakers, the NGOs, the people working on ground, the farmers themselves, people in the value chain. It is a systems approach. You are part of a system. You're not the system yourself. So that's what is, the approach should always be like that. And listen to everybody, because they have such wonderful suggestions, experiences to share, which cannot be seen with your own lens every time. So it enriches your own approach, strengthens your, and then everybody becomes stakeholder, a part of your work. So tomorrow when you go there, everybody have a sort of responsibility, a belongingness to the work which is being done. And such work has got greater acceptability across those set of people than doing their own work, just one fine morning, present your work, which may be criticized, which will not be accepted. So that's how actually the process should always evolve and will be helpful for everybody to actually gain from your own work in the entire society. Thank you.
Yeah, very important perspectives, ma'am, about putting yourselves in other shoes, listening to everybody. So I think important things. We have also got some volunteers. Bittu Srivastav from one of our audience wants to add and enrich the conversation.
Yeah.
So Bittu, go ahead.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible.
Yes.
Audible, Bittu.
Namaste. Yeah, thank you. Very good afternoon. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I am the batch of IIFM 98-2000 batch. I'm very happy to just meet my professors, ma'am, sir, my colleagues, and my my experts here. Thank you. Just I would like to add the things that right now I'm as a Nepali, I'm in Nepal and working in event systems. But as a expertise in forestry, some issues are like as a trans-border issue, because we know that we are concerned about ecosystem, nature, that is not only confined to the certain area. Like as talking to the Hind Kush region, it covers more than that, and Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, all countries comes under. So just very recently, we all hear about that by 2022, if the present trend is continued in terms of the loss, deforestation, means degradation, 1/3 of the glacier is going to be depleted. That is the report coming up. God saves. These are the things. When it happens, we can imagine that it's more than this COVID and something what is happening right now. Observe, beyond our imagination, it goes. Something like as upstream and downstream. So we have to think about the upstream. Only like as Madhu Verma ma'am is already shared about the primary, like a user and secondary users. There are surrounding many people are there. Due to their efforts, the nearer people are getting benefits. So upstream and downstream, without concerning the upstream, only doing to the downstream is nothing. It's not resilient, not sustainable. Some like as a certainly our country, India and Nepal has already signatory of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, SFS and DI framework of action. But only just putting the signature from the government is not enough, because all the activities should come from the bottom up. Once everything goes through the channel, then at the end of the year, the country is going to rank that our level in terms of this SDG goal is here and there. So this is, and certainly we know that for getting the the organic farming, organic agriculture, climate smart agriculture, it's also one key point that very early we have learned that some professors, some our teacher has taught us that at least just the big fundamental thumb rule is that if there is a 1 hectare good forest, it covers 3 hectares for the arable lands. Nothing is required for addition. So some inputs is here, and even if there is a from personal life, from organization point of view, that is what is today, what is means this interaction session is very relevant. It should be continued periodically, and even I would like to request that if even IIFM is our main like the institution support, under that we as the alumni, if we can launch or we can write up some relevant proposal, so our contribution in terms of our the skill technology, in terms of inputs, will be certainly ready, and very happy to see again. And yeah, that's all. And over to you, my senior colleague.
अच्छा, ये Zoom का लिंक मैंने भेज दिया है chat box में.
Yes. Before we all discuss.
Hello.
Yeah. Before we all disperse. Hello.
Yes, Sweta, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, Avinash, you can see in the live, you can see a message from Avinash Kumar. The Zoom voice is breaking. So
you take over, Shweta.
Yeah, I'll just continue. So like Bharti was saying, we have in the first initially spoken with Madhu ma'am and Samrat, and we've got some very good insights on the financial aspects in this. I think we will straight away, without further wasting any time, I really would want to talk with Dr. Dilip Kumar, and he has an immense experience in the sector, and he can shed some light on his experience with aquaculture. So I'll probably start off with Dr. Dilip Kumar sir here. And so what if so one of the things is we would like to know your experience of building so we would like to hear from you your experience of building NBS based solutions in aquaculture. Some of the examples from say Bangladesh, like we discussed earlier, so maybe something, your insights on how to build and how institutions are helping this.
Unmute yourself, please.
Unmute, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Shweta. Yeah. Is it audible? Am I audible now?
Yeah,
yes, sir, yes,
please.
Sir.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sweta, Pandey Sahab, and all other alumni of Indian Institute of Forest Management. First of all, I would like to say a little bit. I had association with IIFM, Forest Management Institute. While I was working in Bombay for Central Institute of Fisheries Education, we were supposed to be the nodal agencies for fisheries education inside India. And then we initiated a course on fisheries extension. Initially, it was agriculture extension people used to come. and they work also for fisheries extension, but we started. And while designing the course, we had a really participating meeting, and also the course director and some of the people from Bhopal Forest Institute, they participated and really just they help us in designing the course. Now it is introduced throughout India in all the fisheries universities and also agriculture universities. That was and really just to say, I'm very happy that I am participating in one of your alumni meet. Well, first of all, I would like to say my experience is only in aquatic ecosystem, and that too aquatic ecosystem mainly on fisheries and aquaculture. While aquaculture is really a very controlled system where we cultivate fish and shrimp and other aquatic organisms, including plants, and it is a controlled condition. But on the other side, when just we talk about fisheries, it is completely wild. It is really an ecosystem where many things are not under control, and for that you need a nature-based solutions to management of such ecosystem. So that is more relevant too. And my experience in Bangladesh, I would like to just speak that what has happened, what is the narrative, what is the say normative things, what we talk about restoration of ecosystem or nature-based solutions. That I will first a little bit, and then I will say that how in this field I had our field experience, something that you see experience of working with the people. Okay, so yeah. So this is very important that we have now starting from 2021 and which will go up to 2030. This is decade on ecosystem restoration. So that is very, very important, and it is a big opportunity. It is in fact, we would like to say that through this decade-long program, we have started a global movement of the decade that gives opportunity for all of us to work for restoring our planet's imperial ecosystems, both terrestrial and aquatic. Here, just it also gives our opportunity to work together to bring life and functions of the ecosystem back to our damaged ecosystem through extensive, proactive and coordinated restoration actions. Rebuilding degraded areas to improve habitat for wildlife, protect our soils and watersheds, support economic resiliency, and better confront a changing climate. What is the core message behind this decade-long program? It is mainly that you see, make people realize that we are all integral part of the ecosystem in which we live and thrive. So any ecosystem that excludes human being, that really just it means that we have not understood, and then any restoration may not work. So we need to make people realize that we are also integral part of the ecosystem. We need to accept that we are also part of the problem, and also we have the responsibility to act to find solutions. FAO of the UN emphasized on the ecosystem-based management about something like about 10 to 15 years back, and that really just that approach is being enforced through this ecosystem restoration through nature-based management. Now, objective of this decade is there are 5, I think that we see discrete objectives. One is we need to showcase successful initiatives that has been taken at the field level. So that will help others, that will inspire and also convince them. The second one, we need to enhance our knowledge through exchange of experience, knowledge, and also that you see learning from the field. Third one is to connect initiatives working in the same landscape, region or topic to increase efficiency and impact. Different organization agencies working in different domain, they must work together so that we can increase our efficiency and create a better impact. Fourth one is creating linkage between ecosystem restoration opportunities and initiative with business entities interested in sustainable production and impact investment. And the last one is bring actors from non-traditionally involved sectors on board by demonstrating the importance of ecosystem restoration to conservation as well as generation of social and economic benefit to the society. So what it is expected that at the end we should have overall achievement of the it is indicative impact in terms of our SDG. So it is expected that overall achievement of the sustainable development goals, it will help in that. Then substantial nature-based solution for climate change, mitigation and adaptation. This solution will come out, and water and food security, well, we will have a much better ease and sustainable resource availability, poverty reduction, economic growth and sustainable livelihoods, and also biodiversity conservation and development. This is need of the day. And now I would like to say, well, these are the, something narrative, but something in this area we have worked in Bangladesh. I would like to just to share my experience with that. So the project was, is it a problem somewhere?
Yeah, I would request.
Is it okay for all of you?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So learning from, we had a project that was funded by UNDP and FAO in Bangladesh, and that was for the title itself, just to see, indicates that what was the objective: economic empowerment of coastal fishing communities for livelihood security. So where there the ecosystem that we have worked, that was coastal fisheries, coastal environment, coastal ecosystem. Resource was coastal fisheries, and resource users were coastal fishing communities. So that was there, and then the overall objective of the project was securing sustainable livelihoods of fishing communities who largely, rather fully dependent on coastal fisheries resources for their livelihoods. And then there was one of the unique feature of the project was, and that is the success, that was the, I think that responsible for the success of the project. There was no blueprint for the project to implement the program. It was all that you go on, discuss with all stakeholders and decide what is to be done, plan what is to be done, and involve those people that they should implement the program. So that was really just very flexible. And then, so there was no blueprint. And but it gave that each and every moment you had to seek suggestions from the target group what to do and how to do. So that was the really just crux, I think, the major strength of that project. So first of all, the first thing the target group we selected about 20,000 families. Across 117 coastal fishing villages. And these villages were all along that Cox's Bazar coast. It is almost 120, 130 kilometers, just to see the southern side, southern end adjoining Myanmar. So first of all, that that was just a dialogue with all it was familiarization. We wanted to know each other, and they should also have they should become familiar with us so that you see they have trust in us, they can feel comfortable talking to us, and they also feel free to just to see come out with their own problems and also suggestions and ideas. So then we wanted to know exactly what has happened, what is the problem. They said the problem is that you see now nothing more is left for our next generation. So they were worried about their generation, their children, because the entire coast, the catch is depleting. And then also that you see the size, the average size of fish caught or landed, that was also decreasing. So because of that, it indicated that you see we have fragile fisheries. The fisheries is not healthy. It is going down. So, and then the total catch they used to get in one individually and also family-wise, also just to see there was a lot difference between 10 years past and that during that period. So then it is very easy. The major objective, the hidden objective was, or overall objective was, how to sustain, how to restore fisheries, how to rehabilitate fisheries, and then so that we can help, we can ensure better livelihoods for the fishing community. But in fact, when we started talking to them, it was just so long. They were not interested and they thought that we cannot do anything to this ecosystem. I think that better we should do how just we can get our livelihood. Immediate need was how to enhance our income generating activity or income generation. And what should be our activity. So then after, yes, I will take another.
Interrupt you. Yeah. So I think because we have had a lot of interruptions within the system also. So I just request you to sort of emphasize your point so that we can bring in other speakers, maybe another 2 minutes.
No, I will take another 5 minutes. Is it okay? 5 more minutes is okay?
I think if it can be slightly shorter, it will be better, but it is okay. If you feel that it is required to make your point.
Yeah. So the first thing that they say, they said that you see our problems are that you see income. So we need to have income generating activities. They said that just we have the problem, we cannot get. Some of the NGOs are there, they are working, they are also just giving us. But in fact, that NGOs, what they provide us, it is a trap that we are to pay a lot of just to see money as interest or something directly or indirectly, will have to pay to them. So these are the problems. Then they said that first of all that they said that you see, we cannot alone, we cannot individually, we can't do anything. So first thing is there that we need to get ourselves organized. So first one was bringing realization among them that they need to get organized, because individually they cannot do until they are organized, then only they can do something at the at village level or also at the watershed level and coastal the belt level. So they got organized. Then women said that you see our need is different, men their need is different. So we should have a separate organization. So there were each village they had an organization of women as well as the men. Then first activities they started until there is activities going on that activities. Or those activities are in interest of all, then you cannot. So the first activities were they started saving money, so that if they can save money, then that money can help those who are going to hospital, those who are sick, or they need some small money to start any business.
Sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, to interrupt here. Very sorry.
Yeah.
Just one point, actually, this we shifted to a free Zoom platform, and the meeting will end in just few seconds. So my only request is we all can join back using the same link, because this link is getting expired in 30 seconds. So my request to everyone that please use the same link and rejoin, because
Bharti, can you hear us? Okay. So I think Ashita will start probably. We already have Anishita with us here. and the other panelist as well. So probably we'll start off with him. So I think we have discussed upon various aspects, like we have talked about fiscal federalism. We have spoken about making a business case. But I believe now there is one dimension which probably Anishta will be able to give us a lot of insights into, that is the farmer's perspective. And that is something I think is extremely important for everyone to understand, because at the end of this, when we talk about NBS approaches, all the NBS approaches have to be operationalized at the field level. So somewhere or the other, the small and medium farmers, they become extremely important in this entire narrative, and their role is very significant in operationalizing the NBS concept. So we would like to actually understand the viability and sustainability of what are those factors which would make NBS viable, feasible from farmers, SMF group perspective, the small and medium farmer community perspective. Anishta, if you could give us some insights onto that.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Shweta. I will, and in the interest of time, today in the morning, as you were following up with me, I did jot down, I took my jot notes, I'll share it with you. So in some ways, this is what the Alumni Association has done. The first word of the decade on economic restoration is also in the shadows of COVID. So this actually gives a very real life experience and context to the ecosystem restoration efforts, and actually connects each one of us. So in some ways, unless you are a Elon Musk looking at next 5 years to get few of us on Mars, we have one guy for ourselves, the primordial mother of all life, and we cannot. But when I say Gaia, we should not confuse with our venerable Gaia here, which is cure to everything, including Corona. So in some ways, the nature-based solutions that we talk here intertwines with the fate of humans inextricably with the protection of our planet. But I guess here we don't have any trumps on this, June round table. So we would, accept that NBS would be a path to here. But I guess there could be, some conversation about how do we go about doing that. In some ways, I keep looking at Anand Girdhar Das's quote that win-win is always a fallacy. Some are bound to lose in that how. And this may actually, whatever solutions we come up with may amount to greenwashing, or a particular how unknown to us will work to our entrenched elite position. You see, we in the last year or so, we have allowed 1% to get exponentially ahead. If you have seen the APU estimates, the first wave itself had pushed a staggering 23 crore Indians into poverty at a very minimum wage line. Pew estimates are lower. And my estimates of the second wave is that it has impacted poverty and rural poverty more severely. One segment hard is SMF, the small marginal farmer with more mouths to feed and supply chain challenges on the perishables. And, along with that, the dream of escaping to urban jobs had been crushed cruelly. On top of that, farm sector carries the onerous burden of, getting India back as on its fastest economic tag. But as you will see in Harish Damodaran's piece a couple of days back, rural India playing economy's savior it doesn't have enough fuel to make Mera Bharat Mahan any longer. So in this context, while Shweta, you have asked me to, when I speak on farmers, these are not on the streets, these are marginal. And what we can do and what they could do about ecosystem restoration, this is really a difficult choice to look at. Restoration, and when I look at restoration, in Google it translates at marammat. So it is about something good that has broken deliberately and now needs fixing. And in some ways, humans would not have become humans without exploiting nature. And that's going on for millennia, at least since, the ape moved out of the Great Rift Valley, and at least 12,000 years back when you had the agricultural revolution, which Yuval Harari puts as we domesticating as humans. So the ag revolution did open up niches for the imbeciles to thrive, and then subsequent the last 500 years, the other earlier speakers have talked about it. So in the last 500 years of industrial revolution, actually we have progressively tamed nature. So much so that a paper in Nature itself actually estimates that mass of everything that we as humans have built. And our favorite is concrete, the glitzy glass and metal skyscrapers to plastic bottles, clothes, and computers. Today, actually, they are more than mass of all living things. So as human beings, you can see the achievement on our planetary footprint. So there is an unevenness to the demand of small marginal farmers who are eking out a living on that small piece of land, and in an age which is, as Paul Krugen put so well, Anthropocene. So that, if you to look at globally, we have about 570 million farms, and out of that 475 million farms are less than 2 hectares. In context of India, and I was looking at data for last 60 years, you see, agricultural land has been stable. So there is no increase in agriculture and no creeping on forests. The other is the share of employment had roughly remained same.
Everyone on mute. Please go on mute. Yeah, please mute yourselves. Yeah, thank you.
So our, in the it is about close to now 42%, little less than 54% a decade back. And GDP contribution of ag sector is 16%. And this includes the high value agriculture components like dairy and poultry. So if you were to look at, when you talk of small marginal farmers, very often we talk of 86%. Actually, what it does is it invisibilizes the 68% marginal. So out of 86, actually, if you say 68%, actually, you will get a very different feel of the problem at hand. And these are just like, as big as a soccer field. You see, the misery of climate variability, again, is invisible. Today, this year also, IMD, like last year, has predicted normal. The subtext of decreasing rainfall and increasing rainfall intensity with localized droughts is, again, invisibilized in this. Same quantum of land, stagnant share in employment, GDP now less than a quarter of 60s. Farmers, in some ways have intergenerationally have become stagnant. And as they become stagnant, you were to look at where the Central East rain-fed, where they export the bulk of the 400 million odd internal migrants that you had, and these were more able-bodied, more venturesome. And you saw their great walkathon back home. Beyond a human tragedy, it is crushing of hope. You see, today the trajectory of a marginal farmer is first sharecropping, then farm labor, then migration. And now there is an added dimension of return migration. So today, unless we look at the rural and agrarian economy has become one of extractive relationship with natural resources. And actually, I argue that the solutions, including NBS, the incentives, the penalties actually lie outside the SMF production system. It is in policies for people like us, the consuming class, and it is in the absence of jobs that we are unable to create for our youth. Sometimes, in the name of this NBS, we talk of climate smart agriculture. In some ways, there is a non-existent tech fix on this. And there is a superfluous fix also. If not, it is an oxymoronic fix. How can you be smart without climate? Agriculture is nothing but interaction of climate, plant, animal. Not to romanticize, but the family farms are very, very different from the more industrialized farms. And unless we start looking at it in a different way, we'll not be able to make sense of what is a small marginal farmer. And, by definition, they are more diverse, less resource intensive, subsistence or local market oriented, and less carbon miles. So a smart intervention has to have a focus on what we at TRI call farming farmer, khet, kheti, khetiar, and it has to be built on a context-specific triad of agroecology, market demand, and the farmer. Within that, when you look at the farmer, unless you look at her resource endowments, her aspirations, her skills and skills capacities, risk capacities, you will not be able to move. So what we say is the objective function has to be, when you look at the small marginal farmer production system, it has to be built around nutrition and economic security at one end and well-being. The boundary condition is ecology, and that's how a virtuous play could be created. I will not go much detail into it. The other axis of our work at Transform Rural India has been a neighborhood or locality-based community resilience. And we have seen that, in many ways that the CBO, PRI, LA, and, coming to play during COVID. And more importantly, actually, the 11th schedule of the 73rd Amendment allows for many things that Madhu ma'am and others talked about. It has, the panchayats have the constitutional mandate to handle many of those things, land degradation, water bodies, watersheds. And most of the pandemic has shown how local communities and local leadership could rise and better equipped to deal with these issues. The flip side, and actually the better side of this kind of engagement, would also be the deepening of democracy. When I think of healthy ecosystems, I think of it as services that make for a better human well-being. This is one hell of a wicked problem. Moving simultaneously ahead on climate change, jobs, justice, and equity, while repairing historic operations, as the 7th generation team puts it, requires the best and the brightest to give their best and look at a more and a larger engagement with the society. There is what Yuval puts it as the iron law of history. Luxuries tend to become necessities and then spawn new obligations. I'll repeat, luxuries tend to become necessities and then spawn new obligations. We have to get the society out of this rut of this is the iron rule of history. And I was looking at the 10 top producers of food: Cargill, Archer Daniels, Cisco, Nestle, JBS, Tyson, Mondelez, and similarly on the fiber side, Irwin, Perkins, Canterbury, or on the lumber side, you have Confor. They have very thick-set engagement with rural production systems. But what, as a society, we do not have a governance mechanism on them. Their supply chains organized around the globe. They clock carbon miles and misery miles together, all in the name of bringing smiles to us consumers, the Walmart discount times. We need to ask tough questions to ourselves, the way we live, the way we dine, the way we clothe ourselves, the way we enjoy tax breaks, and what we value and what price tags we put. This conversation, to my mind, is central to the whole idea of ecosystem restoration. We need to clarify the context and contours of this conversation and support just an equitable quest for solutions. It is said that the place that I am speaking from is Delhi. This was the Khandwa forest which was burnt by Arjuna and Krishna, and this is for Pandava's capital. And they drove the tribes, the forest dwellers living there. See, the Agni, and it was in the name of the Agni, god of fire, needed to satisfy his hunger. We need to get hold of this Agni and tame this hunger for evermore and evermore. The concern, and which is around this table, needs to show up as conscious consumers and make your citizenship and count. The other thing that I just thought, I was just looking at when you said this topic, we have an eye for political correctness in India. We have with such caste discrimination, we can pontificate on racism. We have almost 38% of our land degraded, one of the highest in India. We are signatory to most of the international conventions.
Avinash, mute somebody.
Avinash, I think you will have to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anish. Go ahead.
Sure.
Anish, you are muted. Anish, you will have
Anish
to.
Anish is also muted.
Anishta, you'll have to unmute yourself.
What I thought and must be happening. I'm unmuted now. Yes, great. So I was looking at, the government, very interestingly, in 2014, they added to Ministry of Environment and Forest for added emphasis climate change. The kind of climate that has changed since 2014. I mean, it has also, apart from the other climate, it has also mean faster clearance of EIAs, waivers, and stuff like that. The other thing I was looking at, so you need to look at the political economy of present times and what does the political economy of these vikas that we keep looking for all around us means. I was also looking for countries which have federal ministries of climate change. They're all rich countries and, Billy ko to Hajj par jana hi hai. But among the low income countries, I noticed only two, India and Pakistan. I mean, that is some political correctness in the times of, greater generation. And that's what I come to next. You can't look at ecosystem restoration without situating it in the context of political economy that we inhabit. So to summarize, for me, the NBS pathway for ERA, my 6-bit is look at solutions, and actually the solutions in large measure lie outside the SMF production system. NBS ER, the objective function must be enhancing human well-being. 3, stimulate a higher equilibrium between, there is a challenge, I didn't speak about it, in all these areas of degradation. You will go to Baladala or Singrauli or Lanjigad, you will see the people resource institution relationships have hit kind of a decline. We need to rebuild those people resource institutions. The 4th is to bet on neighborhood. So NBS could actually also mean not just nature-based solution, could also mean neighborhood-based solutions. And we, all of us around this table and beyond, must play our part as a consumer, as a citizen. And finally, context is very important. So when you talk of SMS or when you talk of a landscape or a corridor, you see the context is very important. Otherwise, it is just a con without any text. You see, NBS as a non-brainer as a pathway for ER is a non-brainer. The challenge is how do we get this going at planetary scale? Unfortunately, that old saying, I made a difference to that one starfish, on this agenda at least won't work. There are far too many stars interlinked. We need a societal galvanization. Maybe, what you have said here, Ashish and team and IIFM, maybe this conversation could lead to that. Maybe the upcoming UN food summits could be that forum. It is a bit like what Suraj ka Satwaं Ghora. I don't know whether you know this. Sun god, the chariot of sun god is pulled by 7 horses. 6 just follow the set path, but it is the 7th horse which actually possesses the power to change the course. So in hope of that 7th horse, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anish. That is brilliant. And I think this is the earthy perspective which was required. And allow me to jump from this earthy perspective to something geospatial. So I'd request Vijay to take floor and also share more on the technology part, on how technologies can play a role in the space of nature-based solutions for ecosystem restoration. And Vijay, also feel free to draw from what other panelists have said, including aspects of equity or political economy that Anish has very well underlined. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bharti. Thanks, Anish, for setting the context of my talk further. And as rightly mentioned by you, political economy dictates the resource economy. And with the resource economy, whatever the ownership questions are there, determines then the sustainability question with it. Because as soon as you change the ownership structure of a resource, immediate repercussion has been, and you can see the historical data on that, be it forest or be it water, be it any other resource that is there, its exploitation starts because that principle governs the community interaction with that resource as well. Since I work in agriculture, technology and agriculture are my space, along with financing, largely financing agri value chain and rural finance. I look these into, you can't look the whole agroeconomic ecosystem without the perspective of the political economy that governs that ecosystem. So if I may use agriculture if we say nature-based solutions, then agriculture is a disruption of nature. It is not what the nature wanted. It is always a disruption. Now the point is that how do we sustain this disruption? Agriculture loosely is about 6,000 years old, when earlier civilizations in Mehrangarh and Egyptian fertile plains started looking into agriculture. Wheat and maize were the 2 crops which were grown, and later on other crops. Now, why we need to understand what has happened over a period of time, because we have historical evidences of climate change, climate shift, which has led to large scale depopulation of areas. Indus Valley civilization is one great example of that. Nile River Valley Delta region is an example of that, and there are many such example in the Commonwealth of the CII, former Soviet Union countries, many examples of that as well. Now, why I'm using these examples, because these are the examples where nature and human interaction, especially in the area of agriculture, has kind of collided and led to certain results, which we all know and read in history. It has a large impact on how the population moved, converting people who were stable into nomadic, and the whole the impact is pretty much there. Unfortunately, we don't include that impact when we start looking into production systems, especially agriculture production systems, and try to look into it, into what our goals are. And I think the goals are very important. Without goals, understanding the goals, what is that goal on the basis of which you are envisioning the ecosystem of the production system. If the goal, so initially, if you go back to, I'm just not going back beyond Green Revolution. At the time of Green Revolution, the goal was largely about food security, very clear. Increase production, food security, increase production, food security. And these are the two crops that we'll focus on, wheat and rice. And that was good. That was good for the time being. It was good. It's subsequent to that, that vision, work was done, technology was deployed, production systems were established. Some parts of the country did well, some part did not do as well. The financial systems were set based on those two crops, largely, which is what you call as priority sector lending in agriculture credit. But if you look into what happened, then you have to look into the holistic picture. You never looked into what kind of resources you were drawing out to create that production system in the first place. Desertification of Punjab is a well-known fact. Haryana and Punjab is a well-known fact. Ramnath Plains of Tamil Nadu is a well-known fact, which the whole Kaveri river dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu is based on water sharing. And it is largely because both Karnataka as well as Tamil Nadu changed the crop. They moved from minor millets to hybrid rice, which is a very water intensive crop. So over years, it has an effect. Take example of Chhattisgarh. Again, Chhattisgarh government went into a water resource scarce area plus very less topsoil into hybrid rice. Just 20, there was a great gain in political economy because the politicians were very happy. But ultimately, what happens? The government doesn't have money to buy now. The production is there, not the fault of farmers. So unfortunately, if we try to disengage, the people say don't bring politics into economics. The whole economics is governed by politics. How can you not bring it? It is there. It is what determines the entire effect. And unfortunately, what happens is that the person at the primary production level is the one suffers the most. It's not the tertiary stakeholders who suffer in any production system. So coming back to the point of what needs to be done into it is that technology is available, all kinds of technology, production technology is available, irrigation technology is available, mechanization is available, but does any of these production technologies that we're talking about is suitable for the kind of farming stakeholders we have? Anish thankfully identified and differentiated between the small farmers and the marginal farmers, and if we have the large population. So we need to understand that what type of resources are suitable for a particular type of agriculture, and based on that, we need to kind of define the sustainability principles around that. I was earlier giving the example of Chhattisgarh, where and example of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Just let me give a slight insight into, see, Karnataka has gone into a major way into the Kaveri region Kaveri riverbed region to push for millets. And it has become one of the largest producers of millet in a very short time. Because the policy action took into account the ecosystem resources issues, fundamental issues there, and then started looking into building the production system and supporting that production system with a market system. Now, once that works, the farmers automatically benefit. Now, once you disengage these multiple principles, the economic principle and the production resources principle and the market principle, then exploitation of resources is an automatic outcome of that. So I think the most important thing is that how do we bring, and sorry, I'm forgetting finance. I think finance is probably one of the most important element in this, is that we haven't looked into finance from a proper perspective. Let me give you a perspective first. China has never been an agriculture leader for a very, very long time. It has always got food from outside. But in just 25 to 30 years, China has become one of the largest producer of food in the world. And one of the major contributor to that being the finance, agriculture finance in it. Something which India completely overlooked. The Agriculture Bank of China is the third largest bank in the world, not just agriculture bank. Overall, it is the third largest bank in the world. India doesn't even have single agriculture bank in the country, while it always had the largest agriculture economy in the world. So if you do not create systems which actually enable then there's an element of exploitation which comes into the production system. Financing, if it is an input, if you push for an higher input based agriculture, India, for example, many people don't know that we have a very large mechanization, very at the level of large equipment like tractors and harvesters. We have a large level of mechanization in the country, but this completely disproportionate. In one area it is more, in other area it is less. So we should have been looking into these policies, connecting the finance along with it, looking into the ecosystem resources, and based on all of these, making the crop choices. If we do make crop choices, technology is plenty available to then look into those production system, make them sustainable, and still make farmers have better incomes. So this is kind of I'm trying to kind of do a summary, because we have been kind of cut short here on the time. Otherwise, I would have given more examples for you to understand where we are going wrong in this. And this is without, and unfortunately, it lies at the top. Policy, setting up the policy and its objective determines every underlying action under which the market performs. And this is where we keep going wrong, and we are again, with the new laws, we are again going wrong completely in that. Thanks.
Thank you, Vijay. So sorry I think we missed a lot of your points which would have come, and it will make an interesting follow-up conversation, which surely the Alumni Association should look at. I'll now invite Shailesh. So Shailesh, you were earlier supposed to sort of set the context and also say about the importance of context while designing and implementing such programs. And now a lot of conversation related to political economy, not just and how risk, say, valuation can inform decision making, and the role of or the importance of considering the voices of stakeholders. All this has also come in. So you are free to refurbish or put in your point the way you would like to sum up. Please.
Yeah, thanks, Bharti. I think first of all, I would like to say that one of the main indicators of a healthy ecosystem is that it is resilient. And despite these technological shocks today, we have been able to, basically achieve our purpose. So I think we can say that we are resilient. And I think I'll also take credit because I'm also resilient. So instead of, starting, I can end this discussion. And the same things which I wanted to start with, I'll talk about it. Basically, what I wanted to say and talk about is in a nutshell or a distilled version of my experience with ecological restoration, especially in the domain of forest. And lately, I have also been associated with agriculture. So I have been working on low carbon agriculture as well as regenerative agriculture, designing different projects and working in that domain. But anyway, well, my point was when the whole presentation is structured like that. So I think maybe there are some strands which people have picked up and gone in detail. So this might be come as a summary of what has been discussed, and we get a framework at the end of what nature-based solution for ecological restoration. Especially, I looked at it from forest ecosystem perspective. But then these are also applicable across different ecosystems. So when we talk about nature-based solutions, I think the first question that we should ask is what problem we are actually discussing, or what problem we want to solve through these nature-based solutions. And the problems could be, as Anish has also pointed out, it's human generated. Whether it is water pollution, whether it is degradation, water security, or closer home, you can also talk about, oxygen in the households, reducing your electricity bill. There are nature-based solutions for that. And the alternative for which nature-based solutions are talked about is basically a gray infrastructure. So instead of gray infrastructure, can we think of something which is green, which is sustainable, right? So that's the context of nature-based solutions that usually gets talked about. And when we talk about ecological restoration, we also need to understand that, when we talk about ecological restoration, Anish did mention that you want to bring back a particular ecosystem back to its original state. Now, we don't know what original state was, but in our lifetime, or, since the climate has been like that, or natural physical conditions have been like that, what was the ecosystem? We want to bring it back to that level. And when do we think that ecosystems has reached, or we have been successful? It's only when the functions and the processes which it was intended to do, it's back. It is self-sustaining, right? And usually we have a utilitarian view of things, and that's how there is a purpose to ecosystem restoration, whether it is aesthetic value, whether it is ameliorating effects of synthetic components, whether it is in agriculture or even other production sectors. It could be livelihood, it could be raw material for industries. So purpose is also important when we are thinking about and executing ecological restoration. Now, taking forest ecosystem restoration as a kind of background for my talk, I think most of you would have seen that a very classic image of Haiti versus Dominican Republic. Why the landscape in Haiti is dry, whereas in Dominican Republic it's green. It has some vegetation. And there are factors which are responsible, and I think all of the panelists have talked about some of these factors specifically. But these are natural ecosystems, and these enable, and what we need to do is just to enable the innate components in that, facilitate that, so that they regain original structure, function, and processes. And usually the interventions in natural ecosystems, be it forests, grasslands, or common lands, or common resources, is largely on soil, moisture, and availability of planting stock. So you play around with these elements, and then you get the results in terms of ecological restoration. But this is a simplistic way. What we want also depends on what we value, or what market values, because Anish Bhai brought market element, and Vijay also elaborated on that. And market plays a major role currently. So what we value, it's reflected in the ecosystems which are present, which are there at present. And because different people view these resources, natural resources, differently, we also get into conflicts. And according to Land Conflict Watch, which is available on the web, almost 7 million people in India and 14 lakh crore worth of investments is embroiled in land conflicts. And a larger part of that is on natural resources. So that's the scale of, not managing our resources properly, not having an aligned policy, aligned market, and the interest of various stakeholders together for those ecosystems. So the cost is very heavy. The complexity of eco restoration from both nature intervention and sustainability perspective, it increases manifold with scale. For example, while it may be relatively easier to plan, gather resources, and resolve conflicts at a village or cluster level, when you talk about forest restoration, when you want to achieve the same results at scale, new challenges will emerge, which will require different levels of efforts in different components. And for eco-restoration, what is needed is to identify the causal factors, because unless you work on causal factors, your ecosystems are going to again get into the same shape. You need to understand context very well. And the purpose is why we are doing this eco-restoration, where do we want to take it, and create an architecture. And the architecture will consist of, and I'll talk very briefly about the components of this architecture, but the components are institutions, technology, policy, finance or investments, markets, and we forget about this, but behavior. And human-centric behavior design is very, very important when we are creating an architecture for ecosystem restoration. And I'll give you just a small example. I was there in Tripura on a forest restoration project, and we went to a very degraded site. The trees were decimated, and we couldn't find the reason. We found the reason 10 kilometers away from the site. And it was basically a number of brick kiln industries were set up there, which were, the demand was coming from there. And unless you tackle that demand, the forest eco restoration is not going to work, whatever investments you put in. So I'll just talk briefly about these components, 6 components, which can form an architecture for not only for forest eco restoration, but also for other restoration efforts. So when we talk about institution, I don't think a lot of emphasis has been given in India. So we talk about finance, technology, which are a critical component, but institution is the pillar. Based on my experience, I can say institution is the pillar on which eco restoration efforts have to be designed. And an institutional economist has won a Nobel for providing guiding principles for managing of commons. And that is what we need to consider when we are designing these efforts. Technology is another component, and it is very, very important. In our project, we are doing a number of projects with Forest Department on eco restoration. Technology is playing a very important part. Technology can vary from high quality planting material to very traditional plus trees. And nowadays, in many areas, we don't even know where we get the seeds from, where we get the planting stock from. We are talking about tissue culture, but we are forgetting that traditional knowledge, that where do we get plus trees of a particular species. And that is also a technology. You need to identify that. Again, another, digital technology is playing a major role in eco restoration. We are using a lot of GIS, remote sensing stuff to identify degraded lands, and other aspects within forest eco restoration efforts, including biodiversity, soil moisture component. So there are technologies available which can be less costly, cheaper to monitor all these indicators in forest eco restoration. And nowadays, there are organizations who are also working on working plans and using technology for creating working plans, management plans for forest areas. It is also now being done for community forest resource management. It is getting into domains of institutions, community institutions. And I just missed one point, that in India we have advantage that we have multitude of and plural institutions across the country. In Northeast, you have community institutions who have control over the land. The role of department is very minimal there. We have other institution, community conserved areas in other places. We have sacred groups. So in institution, we are a very rich country when it comes to forest eco restoration. in terms of technology, I think what we are missing currently is, and when you look at eco restoration, because it is about ecosystem, we need to adopt a systems perspective and systems language in that. And when you use a systems language, you will talk about feedback loops, because unless you know, the decision makers know that what is the state of the resource, they can't make decisions. And that is what is mainly missing in our forest eco restoration efforts. The resource inventories, the information that we get is outdated. By the time we need decision making now, but what happens is that the information comes 5 years down the line. We need real-time decision-making equipments, technology, which provides a feedback loop, and we can change the course. Whether it is community-based forest management or whether it is protected areas, we need real-time information. And technology can play a major role in that. And I think Vijay and Anish Bhai talked about markets to a larger degree. But market is also a causal factor as well as enabler for eco restoration efforts. So we have seen, I'll just give you one example that we know about organic farming, we know about fair trade farming, we know about regenerative agriculture. These are all things coming up. Organic has a traction now in India, and people do get some premium, right? And market is sending signal that, okay, this kind of agriculture you do more. So similarly in forest eco restoration efforts, we don't have much of this certification at present. There is not much demand. The market signals are not there. So we need to create market demand, or create a market segment which can send signals for forest eco restoration as well. There are policy aspects also. Some are hindering, some are enabling policy environment, and already Anish Bhai and Vijay has talked about it. I'll not get into detail on it. Finance also has been talked about. I'll talk about behavior, which is my last point. And in behavior, I think what we need to understand is that individuals and groups have their own motivations to do something. Do we understand those motivations? Can we nudge people and institutions? And when I'm talking about institution, it's not only people's institution, but institutions across the levels. Can we nudge them towards the objectives of forest eco restoration? Can we nudge them to have clear and shared goals for eco restoration? Because like I said earlier, it's a very conflicting domain. If we don't have aligned interests, or at least aligned interests, some shared interests, the resources are not going to be protected, and we will come back to the same situation. Thanks.
Thank you. I think Bharti, you have to
Thank you, Shailesh. And also I'd like to thank all panelists for bearing with us, all the audience also for jumping before we reach the seventh horse. I was saying we have been able to reach to a conclusion. So I think some of the critical points that have come in, surprisingly for many, I think including somewhat for me also, we have centered our conversation less on the technical or technical aspects of these nature-based solutions, but come to the crux of it. Means it is easier to evolve solutions and maybe even replicate them, but then the solutions are embedded in a context, which includes not just the natural context, but also political context, the financial part, the community part. And then there are moral imperatives on where we are, how we as consumers take decisions also influences finally these efforts that are being made, where funding goes, what kind of programs are evolved. So I think it was in all a very holistic kind of a conversation. And I'm sure that the Alumni Association has taken note, because every one of these points actually requires a session in itself, a session that we can have continuously without break. So that is something that we can all take forward. So now I will hand over to Archana to do the conclusion, and sort of we have a very green way of felicitating our panelists. So I hand over to Archana. Archana, go ahead.
Thanks, Bharti. And thanks everyone for bearing with the interruptions. The Alumni Association would like to thank Dr. Madhu Verma, Dr. Dilip Kumar, Shri Anish Kumar, Shri Samrat Mukherjee, Shri Shailesh Nagar, and Shri Aditya Pratap Singh for speaking on today's panel discussion. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experiences with all of us. All of us have had much to take away from here. We hope that you will want to be involved with future efforts of the Alumni Association too. A very big thank you to all of you once again. We have planted 2 saplings of native tree species on behalf of each one of you 6 panelists, in the Narmada riparian area of Hoshangabad in Madhya Pradesh. Bhushan will share with us, both for the benefit of the panelists and the participants, a certificate. This certificate speaks of the special exact GPS location on which the 2 saplings have been planted. And we'll be mailing the tea certificates to the panelists as well. Bhushan, would you be able to do it now?
Only actually Avinash will be able to share because the sharing screen has been disabled for the participants.
Okay, okay. Avinash, would you be able to do, or should we do it at the end?
Yeah, let me try it.
I think it has been a roller coaster for all of us throughout this session, and this very well articulated by Sailesh. This shows our resilience in terms of turbulent times.
Trusting technology is dangerous.
So it is a very interesting certificate. So we also wanted to share it with the participants. The panelists would anyway be getting copies of their certificates. The Alumni Association would like to thank Dr. Manmohan Yadav, Dean IIFM. We truly appreciate your willingness to give your time and enrich this event. Since this is a first interaction after your appointment as Dean, the Alumni Association, on behalf of all the IIFM alumni, congratulate on you being appointed the Dean and look forward to a very proactive Alumni Institute collaboration in your tenure. Congratulations and best wishes, Dr. Yadav. These are the certificates. This is Dr. Madhu Verma's, Dr. Dilip Kumar's.
Thank you so much.
Anish, this is yours.
The best thing is it has already been done in the morning, which is very credible. Thanks to Bharti Di and her organization. They have very swiftly done this. So it is already there out there even before we finish this event.
We would like to specially mention appreciation for a fellow alumni, Bharti Joshi, who took her time out of a busy schedule to moderate this session. It became especially difficult today. She had very actively participated in discussing and structuring the event. We would also like to thank our co-moderator, Shweta Bhagat, another co-alumni, for effort she put in organizing the event and for assisting Bharti as a moderator. Thanks, Bharti, and thanks, Shweta. We would like to thank the International Center for Community Forestry of IIFM, our collaborators in this event. We have a special thank for its chairperson, Dr. Amitabh Pandey. Your suggestions were especially helpful in organizing the event. Thanks again for your enthusiastic support. We look forward to more collaborations and partnerships with ICCF. We would like to thank the IIFM's team at ICCF and the MDP cell who have worked back end to support the event. This event was made possible by great amount and exceptional amounts of effort on part of a few of our Alumni Association members, Avinash Kumar, Bhushan Patel, Deepak Kumar Jha, Sejal Agrawal, Sean Roy, Shweta Bhagwat, and Sonia Bakshi. I've named them alphabetically. A special thank to all 7 of you. In fact, they need another special mention because of the last moment firefighting they did because of the way Google let us down. Not to say that many others in the planet were also let down by them. This has been a maiden event of this kind for the Alumni Association. It shall be endeavored to create a space for meaningful contribution in the area of forest and environment. an agenda that we all have been trained for and for which precious public money was spent on us. Thanks once again, all of you. We look forward to seeing you all sooner rather than later. 2021 is the 47th World Environment Day, and we are just a year away from completing 5 decades since the Stockholm Conference on the human environment. This year's theme, as we all know, is Reimagine, Recreate, Restore. This year also marks a decade of the United Nations, marks the beginning of the United Nations decade on ecosystem restoration. Our discussion today is an appropriate background to plan and act for this decade. As the Alumni Association of a Forestry Institute, we hope all of us work in our own big and small way to promote awareness. To conclude the session now, thanks everyone. Look forward to all of you with the report. Take care, be safe, and keep contributing for a greener world. Thank you.